Welcome to MOTS, where we'll be applying the Manzer or Mosi-Thurlow scale of quantitative analysis of pop culture narrative through a binary system.
Or MOTS! This podcast contains spoilers, mature content, and language. Viewer discretion advised. Hello, I'm Jonathan Ian Manzer, here with Scott Thurlow.
Hello, everyone.
And welcome to MOTS. Today we're discussing a movie that both of us wanted to see for a long time, but haven't, Nightcrawler, with Jake Gyllenhaal. Scott, would you like to give a brief synopsis?
Yes. The 1,000 injuries of Bill Paxton. I'd borne as best I could, but when he ventured upon insult, I vowed revenge. I also have another one, if I may.
Go ahead.
I feel like the pitch for this movie would be like, the elevator pitch, a little elevator pitch. Hollywood exec says, alright, what do you got? And the writer-director of this movie said, it's going to be Drive plus Taxi Driver plus parentheses American Psycho.
Very true. I would say it's the biography of TMZ.
That's good too.
But on to the MOTS scale. Scott, what did you think about the introduction?
I am going to give it a 1. Jake Gyllenhaal plays the lead character who... Alright, let's discuss this right now, E, before we launch into the full rating. He says his character name is Louis Bloom. That's a fake name, yes? It could be anything else. He made it up, right?
I could definitely see that. I don't think it's necessarily important to the story, but I could...
Right, but
I don't think it goes either way.
It's an alias, we'll say, yes?
Yes.
I'll take it as such. So to answer the question, yes, the introduction was good. It opened up with him, he's basically stealing metal to sell to the scrapyard, and that's his career, to start out with at least, and that's just what he does.
I will agree with the 1 on this. When you were talking earlier when describing this movie through the lens of other movies, it definitely has that slow burn of...
Yes.
This is definitely within the genre of kind of that existential character profile, character study.
Yes.
And it introduces him very well as a thief who is... gifted in business, but
a motivated thief, if you will.
But not even motivated, but just almost like a
idiot
photographic,
savant.
or a photographic memory, so that he reads things and parrots.
He's a perfect mimic.
Yes, but without any of the necessarily context of. He just knows what the appropriate thing because he read or heard it at one point.
He knows the facts of things, but not how to apply them to real life situations, perhaps.
And they establish that very well, very quickly, even though it's not particularly a exciting draw in the characters.
No, but is it interesting and does it grab me? Yes.
Mm-hmm. So I definitely have to go to 1 for that. So I'm going to go on to the tonal consistency. I feel this is one of the best paced movies I've seen in a very long time.
I agree with that.
It starts off very small in scope. You see him as a thief, and then he kind of falls into this. He doesn't want to be.
He stumbles into a world of sorts.
Yeah, he stumbles into the idea of being a journalist.
A paparazzi, essentially.
Yes, but almost a crash porn, as it
yes.
or
all right. Yeah,
graphic
I like that, yeah.
And you see him fail or initially have his stumbles, and then it builds him up to when he gets proficient. And visually, it's very telling where it shows, he upgrades his car, he starts getting more electronics, he starts getting better camera equipment. Yeah. And it's all, it's very believably paced. And also, his character is consistent throughout the entire thing. He's a very logical, very emotionless character. Reminds me of Marcel and the Stranger, or the character in Drive. And... it shows his slowly bringing his willingness to break the rules in order for his own
to
gain.
Succeed. Yeah,
and I think it's again one of the best paced movies I've ever seen in a very long time. Scott,
I also agree with that. It was perfectly cut up. As a quick background tangent, we took a break, roughly about an hour into the movie, and that was the perfect spot. They built up everything for 1 hour, and then the hour after that showed you the consequence, or what came afterwards in his character arc. And yeah, it was perfectly cut up. They couldn't have spaced it out any better. It indeed was totally consistent, because just jumping the gun, but when we get to character questions, we'll say why he was consistent. And he carries the movie and he was completely consistent, and therefore the movie itself was.
Anyway, Scott, would you like to continue with themes?
Yes. This also will flow into subsequent questions, but it is going to be a 1. It addresses themes very, very well. I think it was quite obvious what theme it was, and I'll make it clear right now. It's essentially the dark voyeuristic urge of humanity, side of humanity, so forth, and filtered through the modern world in which we live. So the internet, all that. Like, he learns everything. All right, Lewis Bloom, in quotes, learns everything he needs to know from the internet, and he even says that as a line outright, I believe, which
Yes,
we'll
he
get
does.
to. But I mean, that's sort of like modern life. You can do that, and this shows you what happens when you're a sociopath who does that, and it perfectly works.
If you view it as only a character study, it works very well. Actually, I feel it has a lot of parallels to Taxi Driver.
Yes,
With
which we'll get into.
yes, but if you go beyond just the character study of the sociopath, go into it has broader themes as well that work. But to the sociopath, one of the things I noticed is that they often show this like nature program where involving wolves.
It's like a National Geographic thing.
Yes,
or
which
something.
show like again, it's to the point of this character is removed from all the like kind of emotion and is just his primal instinct and logic,
sure.
and he is that kind of apex predator
Yes,
type character.
I like that. It's very well said. Yes, I agree.
And going beyond just his character, it's really a parody and at times absurd
Absurdly
parody
so, yeah.
of news programs and especially local news, which
Yes.
thrives off of graphic. Like, for instance, they're like there's one character in the news like most of the newsroom kind of enables Jake Gyllenhaal's character to
Yes.
go off and videotape all these graphic scenes because they want to draw in audiences.
Yeah, well,
with
that's the whole. I mean,
yes.
it's a major commentary, of course, but it feeds into the narrative. Yeah.
Well, we're discussing themes.
Yes.
So, and it really strikes that like, you have this one character who is discussing about the morality of journalism. He's like, should we show these things? Like, we crossed a line of journalistic ethics here by breaking into crime scenes before police get there to get the footage. But it really is with the dominance of cable news here and the 24-hour news cycle. Network news needs those kind of shock programs. So I think it does a fair job, if at times heavy-handed, on that point.
This may be going. We'll bring this back in dialogue, but they said outright. I mean, this is a known thing. If it bleeds, it leads, and he was told that, and he took that to heart, and that was, I think, if not the major theme, one of the major themes of this entire piece.
In a sense, he's the monster they created,
Yes.
but because of the reality,
He's not the monster society wants. It's the
Yes,
monster
yes.
they deserve, of course.
but it's it. They need him to like.
Yeah.
They created a monster, but it worked. Instead of being the traditional kind of morality,
It went horribly right, if you
Yes.
will.
So I have to give it a 1 for actually, and this leads very well into the ending, which I'll continue on. Is that I'm not surprised it happened, but if this were a more traditional movie, Lewis Bloom, who's the main character, Jake Gyllenhaal, would have to suffer some kind of penalty for his callousness, but he doesn't.
In fact, he succeeds. He builds his empire upon callousness. Yes, of course.
He takes out his rival. He takes out he gets killed. His partner, who was kind of going against him and starting to second guess things, he gets the girl at the end, who is falling more in love with him because of his success.
Because he's so cold.
And he took his rival's idea of expansion and co-ops it, and is successful
To his own empire, yeah.
So it was actually, in a lot of ways, the perfect. It was a culmination. But there is one detraction I have.
Oh.
I felt that the ending chase scene. Actually, I saw another movie, Prisoners, somewhat recently. This is the second Jake Gyllenhaal movie that had a ridiculous chase scene. I thought it was a little over. Like, it broke that threshold of realism a little bit by making it a very over the top scene. And
all right.
I could see why they did it, but it was almost unnecessary considering the realism of everything that happened beforehand.
I more or less agree, but it didn't offend my sensibilities as much as it seemed yours. Even though it was like overall, we agree it's perfectly fine. But I see what you mean. However, I thought it was just over the top enough, I guess.
Yeah, it wasn't enough to make me give this a 0.
Yes.
But it's just something that I know.
Sure.
I thought of while watching this.
Fair enough.
Scott, would you like to expound upon the ending?
No, I mean, I'm going to give it a 1 officially. It was a perfect ending. It was the culmination of his arc, and it was the arc that needed to happen, of course. Yeah, as you just said, he takes over. He learns what he needs to learn by himself, and he puts it all together, and he makes it happen. He engineers like disasters in order to, promote himself, and does, and it worked out perfectly. Yeah, it was a perfect full circle arc, if you will, kind of.
All right, would you like to continue with discussing characters now, and specifically the antagonist?
I certainly will. Now, this one is an interesting one, right? There's no actual villain. Like, it's not like he's fighting anybody. He's getting the footage. It's basically him filming graphic murder scenes, or like increasingly graphic crime scenes as the movie goes on, because he needs to one up his game every time. That's what society. So it flows into my answer. Pre-discussion for this movie, we were trying to lay out antagonists. You said to me, you're going to say society. Yes, that's probably true. But in a very specific, very specific slice of humanity's mindset, if you will, which of course, the voyeuristic nature of watching catastrophes happen. Like our vampiric need, or at least desire, that we have as people and a society, yes, to see those kinds of things. But also, and that's what it's a perfect analog to real life media, because that is what's happening. That the only way to really arrest people's attention is to show them something horribly graphic, really. And so, therefore, given that is going to be ingrained in almost anybody to some degree, I'm calling that the antagonist, and that certainly deserves a 1, because you can't escape that.
I'm going to give this a 0. I was just being sort of facetious with that comment about society earlier. I'm trying to think of... Bill Paxton was almost an antagonist for a while, but he never quite elevates himself to that role. And Jake Gyllenhaal, Louis Bloom, does not ever really fight with his morality.
He has no morality.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's he never... so that's not... there is no... there's nothing confronting him with anything in this. Now, if you view... other characters have to deal with him he's the villain protagonist in a way.
For sure.
But
that's what I was going to say.
There's no good guy trying to stop him in a way. There are people who challenge him, but they're all in a sense minor characters.
But that's the whole point. There doesn't have to be a villain. It's society's mindset already is that.
But I don't feel he's. I don't feel that there's an yes, if you want to get to this broad idea of things, but I don't think it's solid enough to claim anything as the antagonist, so I'm going to give it a 0 there.
Fair enough.
Okay, and I will continue into protagonist. Jake Gyllenhaal does a phenomenal job playing Louis Bloom. It's almost a little too much at times. I felt that Christian Bale did the sociopath a little bit better in Patrick Bateman in American Psycho. But it never went into the point of being a
caricature of
parody, yes. A caricature. So, and he has some great pieces of dialogue, and he's just phenomenal. He really this entire movie rests on him.
A creepy person. Yeah.
He co-produced this. I feel that this is kind of it has this sense of a passion project, and it really carries over. He does a phenomenal job, and I cannot rave enough about his performance in this. I'm going to agree, so I'll try to build on what I can. Yeah, he played this character to perfection, and I think one of the best touches I thought is that if you notice the whole movie, he's dead eyes. He never blinks, or hardly ever, and his eyes are open wider, unsettlingly so. It's almost like Uncanny Valley when he talks to people. Yes.
It's disconcerting as hell, but that's the whole point, because he's not quite human. He's of course more of a psychopath than anyone else. So but people call him out on it. But regardless, he as you said, he's sort of an idiot savant. So he outright says, I mentioned this before, but I'll say it again. He's you can find and learn almost anything if you want to. And that's what he did. Like, he refined his skills as a paparazzi contractor, if you will.
Mm-hmm. But it's interesting that there is a lie to that, though. He never quite grasps the subtleties of human interaction. And there's this one scene that's... But again, like,
you don't have to learn that.
But you...
He's learning rote things. He's like, he's like, I did a business class. He's like, looking about, one of the turning points, I would say, an early one, is when he starts matching the police codes. He gets a police scanner so he can, like, figure out where the next crime is happening. And he, like, filters out all the codes that are not the ones he wants. And he, like, learns them at code 37, whatever it's going to be. Like, there's a montage of him intently learning this stuff, and, like, that's his character. That's what he would do. And he spits facts all to people. Like, when he gives the diatribe to Nina, he's like, ratings equal this, and you're coming up to the sweeps, like, all this crap. He spits it back in her face, and she clearly does not expect.
Well, I actually wanted to go into that section. There's a phenomenal scene. I think it's the best scene in the movie. Is a diner. He invites Rene Russo. Is the head of the director of News Network or similar, like executive producer of that. So he invites her out to dinner, and it is one of the most awkward dinners I've ever seen. Because again, he's completely logical. Yeah. So he's assaulting her again, but he wants to have a relationship with her to fulfill a physical need and also to use her for his own ends and he understands that she's using him, and she backs off at the beginning, but he logically breaks it down to her there, and he gives her reasons why it should be the case. And she starts, in a sense, at the end, she's like, at least she has an attraction towards him. So again, it's almost kind of a wish fulfillment for sociopaths. Kind of, yes. Where I feel that in other situations, it might not have, like in real life, it would not have ever played out in his favor in a lot of these. But of course not. But again, the performance was so fantastic. I like the way he did it. Exactly, that's what I'm going to say. I like the way he laid it out. It was written very well, and he acted that scene amazingly, of course. I don't know if it's the best scene in the movie, but it's a fucking standout scene for sure. And it was really excellent. And yeah, like, I don't know. Because his character is so coldly logical, he gives her the cold, hard logic facts of why this I don't know, partnership, if you will, in many senses should work. And it mind fucks her. It convinces her, more or less, at the end. Huh. Even though she should and does find him creepy, but his logic is so persuasive that it overwhelms that. Well, all the best relationships start with negotiations. Yes, fair enough. Blackmail. Fair enough. So, Scott, would you like, since we're speaking of Nina and all of that, would you like to go into supporting characters? Sure. Supporting cast, I'm going to give it a 1, of course. Bill Paxton plays his... Alright, so what happens is, an early plot element is when he's first stumbling into the Nightcrawler life, if you will. He tries to go... He runs up to film, like, an accident or something. And Bill Paxton plays like the veteran, like TMZ guy, essentially. Like he's like, I've been on a job 14 years. I've been night calling 14 years, or whatever he said. So he instantly, like, Hall, that is, realizes that this guy has inside information that I need to know to be better than him. So he creepily follows him. I don't think that was Bill Paxton. Oh, maybe it's not. Right. But either way, right. So you're right. All right, let's rewind. He's introduced to a professional TMZer, if you will. Mm-hmm. And then, like, as he creepily follows him back, the guy's like, get the fuck away from me. He's just observing everything that he needs to know. He's like, okay, do this, do that. And the guy's just, like, offhandedly yelling at him. He's like, get a better camera, you stupid amateur fuck, like, something like that. He's like, and you can see it on his character's face. He's like, all right, duly noted, better camera, etc. But then he sort of has a love-hate relationship with Bill Paxton's character. Bill Paxton's character offers him a job at some point. And Hall says, nope, not interested. And it was that was a really good exchange, too. So I liked him as a character. I liked Nina, of course. Renee did a great job. And we haven't mentioned this yet, but we'll get to it soon. His partner, Rick, that he hires. Like, basically, it's implied and or, like, obvious enough that Rick is homeless, or recently homeless. Sort of gets taken under the wing of this, like, he has no idea, that this is coming. It's so good. But they somehow form, like, somewhat of a... in the best way that Hall's character could have a friend. That's what Rick is. But nevertheless, he still sees him, of course, as how can I use this person
to achieve my own ends.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also trying to teach him. He's legitimately trying to teach him something, but because he needs him to be better at his job anyways. You know what I mean? So he's like, did you look up the route to this? He's like, I told you, this highway is closed. Come on, you gotta pay closer attention, right? So he gives him like motivation almost. He gets like very awesome, like clearly he's spitting back like things that he read on the internet to Rick about how to like be a business and how to have employees.
Or I could see him having attend motivational speaking seminars.
Yes, and just spitting it back at him.
Just parroting it back.
Exactly. But so Rick, pretty much is like the most human character in this film. But also, I'll bring one more up. In a grand tradition of if one side character is awesome, I mean, I'm going to give it a 1 regardless, but here's the guy I like the most. I don't remember his name. I don't know if we have his credited name. But it's I wrote it down as conscientious news guy. Mm-hmm. The one guy with a conscience in the newsroom who's like, yeah, this is great footage, but it's horribly unethical. I don't know if I want to be doing this. Like, I think we made a joke. We MSTK'd it for 1 second. When he protests, it's basically like, guys, we're about to cross a moral event horizon, and I'm uncomfortable with that. And everyone else in the room is like, why? Like, we're cool with it. He's the one guy. He's like, what's his actual budget? Remember? Renee Russo says something funny to him. She's the news editor of the night news segment. He's like EP or something, producer maybe, something like that. But she says to him, "You write the fucking tweets. I'll figure out the news footage." Mm. But nevertheless, he's like, "Yeah, we should not be showing this." And she was like, "I don't care whether or not we should. Can we legally show it? Then let's do that." So I like him too. Like, he's the one guy, one journalist with a conscience apparently, whose voice, of course, got shouted down in the newsroom.
All right, so there's plenty of supporting characters in here that I want to get to.
All right.
We talked about Nina at length, and the fact that she falls in, or at least has some kind of attraction at the end. You have Joe Loader, who you mentioned earlier, who is Bill Paxton's character. Now, I'm going to, I guess, spoil this, but we already mentioned that, so fuck off. Joe Loader offers Gyllenhaal a job because he wants to expand into a second van to cover news, and that starts to actually detract from Louis Bloom, Jake Gyllenhaal, ability to get the scoops.
Yeah.
So he ends up cutting the brakes of the van and causing Joe Loader to crash into a pole and be carted off, never to be seen again in the movie. And Jake Gyllenhaal's filming him being carted.
It's a perfect, ironic, like fitting revenge.
It was absolutely perfect. Fortunato I would be proud. So we also have, you mentioned Rick earlier. In any other movie, Rick would be the moral
the voice. Audience surrogate almost. Close enough to it, yeah.
If he is the audience surrogate, the movie doesn't have a high opinion of
America. Yes, I know.
I'm quite sure that he's an addict. He has that kind of, or at least he's either dumb or an addict.
They never outright say it, but like it's heavily implied. Like, yes, he has something that he can't get away from.
Yes,
he's stuck in a situation which is, unemployed. Blue collar would be like being generous.
Like a stoner,
kind of. Yeah,
right to him. Like he's either dumb or a stoner.
He's the guy out of his element who just trying to make ends meet. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he's been living on the street and he ain't the smartest guy in the ain't the sharpest knife in the fucking drawer. Is all.
And I guess he dies at the end, and he gets set up in a sense. There's a home invasion that happens, and Jake Gyllenhaal's character ends up finding out who the guys are, and instead of turning into the police, he waits
for
down,
a better story. Yes,
yeah,
that's the whole point.
To set up an entire shot for that. And when there's a chase scene, the car ends up crashing. He ends up going up to the van and telling his partner to go film the guy in the van because he's dead. The partner shows up. The guy's not dead. The criminal shoots him,
yeah.
And then he's filming his partner Jake Gyllenhaal was filming his partner dying, and is like, "You shouldn't have asked for more money. Like, you should have followed my orders."
Yeah.
And again, it's his callousness. He's a sociopath. But Rick gets punished for greed. He knows the difference between right and wrong, and chooses.
But he still chooses greed.
Money.
He chooses greed over morality.
Yes. So he gets karmically punished or narratively punished for that. But again, Jake Gyllenhaal, who has no morality
whatsoever, succeeds. Yeah, wins. Yeah.
So I guess in the end, to go back to thieves for a second, it's saying that it's better to have no morality.
Yes, of course.
Any morality
Yes.
at all.
It's better to be feared than to be loved.
And I thought I thought the actor did a fine job with it. He's kind of annoying, and it's kind of...
He could be grating, but he fulfilled the role he needed to be and was portrayed perfectly fine.
I don't understand narratively why he's in the movie aside for that last scene.
No, I'll rebut that.
Okay.
Like, realistically, you would need someone else with you. You can't drive and shoot and film. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
but what greater point does his character represent
serve
in this movie?
No, I mean, that's a fair question. I don't know if I would say... You're right. But nevertheless, if he doesn't serve that role, if he doesn't like fit into that slot, which I agree, you just convinced me that's true, they still needed him to fulfill the role like that.
I think it's more of a...
He needed a partner regardless.
No, Jake Gyllenhaal needed someone to act off of.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and again, I don't feel that... Even he's the major supporting actor in this, and I don't think there's any reason... Like, they didn't do...
I get it.
...anything with his character for that. But a number of other characters are very successful. And in fact, they
rounded it out, yeah, sure.
One of the news anchors plays, in a sense, himself. It turns out to be an LA news anchor.
He's a real LA news anchor, yeah.
Kent Schocknick or something like that. I'm probably butchering that, but nonetheless.
Kent Schockman is what I said earlier. But yeah, no, he's an actual LA news anchor.
So I thought that was a nice little
that's a nice touch,
people
yeah.
who would get that.
Agreed.
So I have to give it a 1 overall. If a softer one because of, I feel, the lack of real drive behind this character.
All right, fair enough.
So I'm going to go into dialogue. I have to give this a resounding 1. Jake Gyllenhaal's character is perfectly written. He gives...
Agreed.
Again, is it sort of wish fulfillment to a certain
Somewhat.
respect? He's almost too perfect in a way that he... But again, it all works. I enjoyed it immensely. And I don't really remember any cringeworthy lines or anything like that, but I thought it was very entertaining watching him. In the same way that's entertaining watching Patrick Bateman in American Psycho and other...
And so forth.
Stories like that. So I can give it a 1, Scott.
I mean, I absolutely agree. In fact, I remember multiple times turning to you and being like, that was a great line. Mm-hmm. Excellently written. So yeah, I'm giving it a 1, of course. It's two things. It's both what he said and, of course, how he said it, because his character... Again, he's presenting everyone with cold, logical facts. He said something like, he's like, I'd want to kill you, like, punch you in the ears right now, but I'm going to walk away and do some accounting. Like, he's just telling you... Like, he basically, as we said earlier, and I think this is even funnier, still sound true, he's more salting everybody. He just tells you exactly, more or less what he's thinking, and what is appropriate that he has learned, in quotes, to be appropriate to the interaction that's happening to him at any given time. And he tells people like it is, and then he does it. And he would be a great teacher. He's trying to teach people something. Or his method's the best? Maybe not, but he's telling you the information you need to know.
But he might get his students killed.
Maybe. But at least they would learn something. But regardless, yes, it was a 1.
The other students would learn something.
Yes, true. It's definitely a 1 for me. There were many excellent lines, and again, excellently delivered. So that's all I got to say about that.
Okay, thanks, Forrest Gump. Now, Scott, on to immersion. What are your thoughts?
There was one moment that almost broke my immersion, but it didn't quite get there. So I'm gonna give it a 1. My immersion was never broken. There was one thing that approached it, maybe, but I thought of it and then instantly forgot it because the movie did a good enough job of making me forget about it. Mm-hmm. So I'll keep it vague. Maybe you
keep it vague.
You can talk. All right. There was 2-ish similar things. He rolls up. One of his turning points is that he's able to like creep around and like enter the house that a crime has just happened in, and like they're getting questioned by the cops. But you should have in real life you would have been cordoned. Like you would not have been able to get in there. They would not have let you in. The first crime scene when he shoots in there, like he even goes to the fridge, and, like moves around the family picture so he gets a better shot. I like that. Like character wise, that was amazing. But there's no way he would have been able to get to that point realistically. Like I thought to myself, you can't do that. Like, cops are not that incompetent. But maybe not. But either way, like, it approached it, but then I immediately forgot about it because it was so compelling. Otherwise, it made perfect sense to his character. He would do that, and it all, played off itself, and it was fine. So, overall, of course, 1. Maybe if this were another movie, I'd be like, nah. It's sort of like a John Wick thing, but it wasn't to that degree. So, therefore, that's why it's fine. No, there was never a point in which I completely questioned what was happening.
I'm generally very harsh with this, and there was never a major moment in this film that truly snapped my immersion.
That's what I'm saying.
However, there were a lot of small ones.
Ones that came close, like I said, but
I believe that the sum of all of them
But did they? All right.
would break... Now, this is kind of unfair, but I'm going to start with this. I hate cringeworthy moments. And his social awkwardness actually led me to stand up at a point and have to move around because I couldn't handle the awkwardness of that scene.
But that's the whole point. Of course.
Is it the point? But
right.
Again, I'm ready. But alone on that, I wouldn't have given it a 0. However, there are many.
There's multiple
many
instances.
small
Is what
little
you're saying.
things where he turned to you at one point when he's searching the internet for license plates. I'm like,
all right,
can that actually happen?
I was going to say that one too, sure, but I'm gonna let it pass.
I
But
mentioned
you're right.
earlier that the ending was so over the top that it almost broke tonal consistency by turning into an action scene.
I mean the final chase, not the
the
ending.
final chase. And again, it didn't break enough for tonal consistency. It didn't do that enough, but it brought me to the point I'm like, yeah, this is kind of out of place slightly. So I'm gonna say for all, it's a lot of no ones, but a lot of point ones that all add up.
You're saying Death of a Thousand Stings.
Yes.
All right.
So I'm gonna have to give it a 0 for
All
that.
right. Fair enough.
And would I recommend this? Absolutely. I think if you're a Jake Gyllenhaal fan, this is a must-see. If you're not, I think this will win you over. This is a great... He does a fantastic job acting in this. It's a long movie, but I don't think anything could have been cut out. So I have to give it a resounding 1 for watch it right now.
No, I'm gonna build off that. Like, first, I don't give a shit if you're a Jake Gyllenhaal fan or not. Just watch this movie. Either way, it was perfectly paced. It was 2 hours, by the way. That's the perfect amount of time. No more, no less. They sliced it out perfectly. There was not a second of padding at all. I think it was all like I said, as I referenced earlier. We took an hour intermission. It basically was the perfect hour build up. Act 1, boom. Maybe Act 1 getting into Act 2, then Act 2 was perfectly sliced up. And yeah, I recommend it. It was an entertaining and very smartly done modern take, modern vision of America and humanity's mindset.
All right, well, we're going to aggregate the scores now. Scott gave it a perfect 10.
Yep.
I gave it an 8. So that leaves us at a 9, which I think is a very fair...
I think it deserves a 9.
Yes. I'm going to give my kind of final thoughts on this. It's a fantastic movie, but it has its minor little flaws that stop it from being a perfect movie to me.
I'll agree with that.
And the character is almost too perfect in everything he does. He doesn't have any flaws. It's more of situational flaws than character flaws. I mean, aside from the fact that he's a sociopath. But, not that that's a character
You have to
flaw,
take that as a given, of course. Yeah, all right. So my final thought is something like, if cold logic is going to be the right answer, then he's right about everything. It's the other people who fuck you over. And, given that, that's the surface sort of thing. But everything else about it was perfectly entertaining. It has definitely a commentary about, like I said, modern contemporary society, culture, if you will. And it was perfectly wrapped up from start to finish. It made perfect sense throughout, and I was entertained every single second. So I recommend it. You will be too.
So I'm Jonathan Manser with Scott Thurlow.
Good night. And I have to go film some graphic footage of a car crash right now.
Yeah, we're actually quitting right now, and we're going to become professional paparazzi. So we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Bon Mots.
This has been Bon Mots. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. Music by Chris Morgan.
Editing and engineering by Jonathan Ian Manzer.
This has been a Los Angeles production. All rights reserved.